couple of you asked about whether Hack and Longino actually have inconsistent views or not. One of you said, are Hack and Longino's views really different from each other? Because I feel like feminism is quite a loosely interpreted term, and it can mean different things for different people. Hack did acknowledge sexism as a problem in epistemology, and I think the act of trying to get rid of this sexism is not really far away from the feminist method of acknowledging the role of gender when doing epistemology, as stated by Longino. That's the question your classmate asked, and I think some other people asked similar things. I think it's interesting because I actually often have the same reaction to these pieces when I read them. Affectively, like their affect toward the notion of feminist epistemology or that term are very different. Longino has very positive feelings about that term. Hack has pretty negative feelings about that term. When you get down to what they're actually saying and actually suggesting, we might think, look, maybe it's not that different because it's not that obvious how doing what Longino says, doing feminist epistemology in the way Longino says, which is doing epistemology while revealing the differences that gender plays. It's not so clear how that doesn't amount to largely the same thing as some of what Hack says, which is try to avoid the sexism in epistemology, try to avoid assumptions that maybe only apply to men. So I do think, despite how sort of vociferously they both they seem to disagree, we should think about whether they really are disagreeing that strongly. I think they are closer than they seem to be, but I do think there might be some disagreement. So we might think, look, by simply saying that we can and should be neutral, as Hack does, or that we can and should be objective, or that we can and should sort of eliminate bias, I think someone like Longino will think that that attempt will itself obscure the role that gender plays in some of the ways I tried to discuss in the previous video. I should also mention that Longino is sort of not what you would call on the farther, more radical side of feminist epistemology. Some of the people Hack cites in her paper are much more radical in the sense that they want to deny that there's a such thing as objective truth, or sort of say the only theory you should accept, what it is to be a good theory, is to serve the right political goals, and avoid retrogressive political goals. Longino doesn't accept anything that radical, and so in a sense she's much closer to Hack than people like Alison Jagger and Sandra Harding are, who are both cited in Hack's work. And so I think this is an interesting question. I do think there are differences, but I do think the differences are less than they might appear just if you are paying attention to how passionately they use their language about these topics.